So you said you had a heroin addiction and you were trying to get out of that and went to rehab and then they put you on medication. What kind of medication is it that they give you?
And when we are in a sympathetic state, we are in fight or flight. All of our blood gets sent to our extremities, which means we really don't have any intuition. I've witnessed what you can call a vagus nerve detox, and it's taught to us that it'll happen 1 in 1,000 people, and I've witnessed it 4 times now. But it is the most beautiful thing I've ever. Every single one of them that have come out of it are like zeroed. They totally grounded, totally back at center. So in the early years of addiction treatment in this country, there were two options. The other sect would be you would go there and they would say, see the psychiatrist, and you would get given sleeping tablets. You would be given mood stabilizers, sometimes antipsychotics. They null the ability to not only feel unhappy, but also to feel pleasure.
Greetings, seekers of ancient wisdom, and we're back again for another exciting show about ancient technologies that work for you today. So I'm joined today by Jono from UMOYA, and Jono is a certified acupuncture detox specialist. That's quite a unique role. So Jono, how did you become an acupuncture detox specialist?
Hey, Deepak, thank you. I think it didn't come through. It didn't come through a point where I was like, I was in a desperate situation in my life, and a good friend of mine had been to done a practitioner course, and in my early years, I had a long, extensive process of recovery in my own journey of healing heroin addiction. And I'd been exposed to different therapies, and a lot of them were involving medication. And the medication, after several years, just kept changing, and there was a lot of instability. So I kind of was interested in the capacity that acupuncture offered of things to deal with pain, to relieve emotions, and not really attuned to the understanding of how emotions were held in my body at that time. After a first session with a friend, I just broke down and I realized, well, just by putting pressure on these points, they were able to circulate and regulate my own system again. So that was back in 2006. Later in 2012, amidst running a secondary care facility for people with addiction, we started saw the practice more, and I firsthand experienced it with people going through withdrawals, seeing people how people could regulate. And later on, in a couple of years later, 2018, 2019, I was counseling people a lot just sitting in an office, and it was very verbal. And a lot of the people that I was counseling and dealing with were not from my cultural background. I was dealing with cases of trauma, people that had ancestral trauma. And so when you're dealing sort of on a cognitive level and trying to get them to talk, it just wasn't working. We weren't really getting anywhere. And so I got registered with NADA, the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association, and did my process of training and understanding how it worked. And the first people I really worked with were always straight from the go in desperate situations. And this method has allowed me to treat people in bus shelters, bus stops, in the parks. You can treat someone anywhere, in a hotel room, in a lobby, in a hospital bed. I've been to hospice, and giving people this because they no longer can receive drugs, but they're still in pain. And, just this method is so gentle, it's non-verbal. So we're not trying to get into anyone's beliefs or trying to impose anything on them. We just allow and trust in the wisdom of their own bodies. And I think this is what the method is based on. It's based on the Chinese mystics understood that there were technologies in the body, and they correlated these technologies with elements, and they understood that there was pathways, meridians, Ayurvedic call it nadis, and it's just a similar technology, just different language. And it's quite amazing now that we are moving away more into a place of resonance within ourselves. And so psychiatric medicine has its place, but for a person like me, it got to a point it didn't work. It wasn't working. And I've seen the joy of people finding balance again with the specific method of acupuncture. It's a method using the ear, using points, specific points. There's no sort of just stick it and hope it's going to go. It's all about having exact point location. So that's how I got into it, and I used it throughout my recovery in 2019 of Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was a wonderful tool to aid the detoxification process for me. And it's not just about acupuncture, is not just about physical detoxification. It's about the emotions that are linked to that. And I've noticed and witnessed people, for instance, having emotions trapped in their kidney, in their water element, and having bladder issues. And after 2 or 3 sessions, their body restoring balance and not having an issue like that. People having hormonal issues. So there's nothing in what I do that I'm some guru that comes in with some knowledge that you don't have. This method is just such a humbling and such a free method for everyone. And it's reasonably, it doesn't cost a lot to treat people. And it takes a bit of time just to understand, and if you have that passion for working and doing it. So that's how I got into it, and I see it going forward. I think it's going to be a big thing in oncology care.
So I'm very curious how this relates to the conventional acupuncture. So when I hear acupuncture, I think of a patient lying on a massage bed, but with their face down, and with somebody putting needles in their back, and then like you look on their back and there's just like a whole array of needles in a certain pattern. That's how I understood acupuncture, right? And my understanding is that they're putting these needles into certain points on the meridian. So you mentioned the meridians being these energy channels along the body, but they're putting these needles into certain points along that meridian, probably where maybe meridians join, or there's a junction point where other meridians split off. So they put a needle in there, and somehow that needle stimulates the meridian's flow, and that would be connected to a number of organs. So you've taken that concept, and now you're saying that you put needles into people's ears. Is that right?
So this is how it all started, right? The Accudetox, acupuncture, detoxification. The method was only actually of the process of using it was found in the 70s. And there was a doctor that was Chinese medicine, and he was treating the addicts in the Bronx. And their only option and their only thing that they had available for them to help with the withdrawals of the heroin and the cocaine and all the crack and all the drugs that were there was methadone. and he's actually one of the forerunners. And so a specific doctor got involved in the Lincoln Park Memorial Clinic, where he started giving Accudetox to addicts, and then Mkulu Shakur, who was a I think grandfather, an uncle of Tupac Shakur during the 70s in the uprising, was opposed to using the government's methadone and encouraged this method. And what happened was a person was having a seizure in a clinic, and the person used the sympathetic. So we know we have a nervous system, and when we are in a sympathetic state, we are in fight or flight. All of our blood gets sent to our extremities, which means we really don't have any intuition either. But we also don't have the capacity. Our immune system drops in being in a sympathetic state. So he put 2 points, and it was used it's called battlefield acupuncture. It's recognized. It's a powerful method used in relief disaster efforts. When you arrive amongst a village that can't understand you, and you just put some needles in those points, that's all that happens, and it works. So from that momentum of him seeing it work with the worst of the worst addicts, he formed NADA, and NADA got recognized, and there's countless case studies and progress, and it's a lot more. There was funding allowed in the States for NADA protocols, where they would put up places in parks, in church parking lots, outside mosques, do things and just give it out as a method for people. So the difference is, you've heard of reflexology. We see how we can use reflexology on the hands, on the feet. We also find that the ear is very, very intricate. There are many points on the ear, and these have been proven to actually correlate with systems. And so if you use a specific sequence in a system, there can be a method of flow. And Accudetox focuses primarily on the organs of the organs, yin organs of detox. And one of the primary points being the sympathetic. I put that point in. No matter what distress a person is in, their body immediately goes into rest and digest, and are able to, sometimes the overwhelming experience, just finding a bit of safety in their own body again, is a great starting place.
So you're saying by putting a needle in a certain point in the ear, you can take a person from a sympathetic nervous system, where their sympathetic fight or flight is active, into parasympathetic nervous system being active, where they're calm, digesting, all the organs are functioning, and just by that needle, and how quickly does it happen? Is it like it takes a few days, or are you saying it's instant?
No. Usually in a session, it's immediate. There is immediate response. You're tapping into a pathway in the body. The needles are, and I had a lot of fear to become a full practitioner, an acupuncture practitioner. It takes a lot, and to become a acupuncture detox practitioner requires a lot less studying. But what I found is that a person's experience and everything they understand comes into play when you are treating someone. So your energy, your nervous system, the clutter that you hold within you is effective in the environment, in the container. And so I realized that when we were doing these things, that there was a release of emotion, but there was also a part of me with a residue, and whatever that would be would be an effectual part of the process. And so a better understanding of self, and understanding of how and what you hold, Um, and I think that's the conduit really, because there's been times when I can't choose it because it's not about me. I'm just putting the needle in the point, but that person's body is ready. I'm ready. Everything goes, and I've witnessed what you can call a vagus nerve detox. Um, and it's taught to us that it'll happen 1 in 1,000 people. And I've witnessed it 4 times now, where a person, the vagus nerve, they totally, you need to remove the needles straight away. But it is the most beautiful thing I've ever, every single one of them that have come out of it are like zeroed. They totally grounded, totally back at center. And it's a declutter of that nervous system. And so for us as to understand that by placing a point here, how can you influence my inflammation in my body is foreign to us. We're not used to things like by moving certain points, but we see that the ancients understood the movement a lot better and these technologies. So I think there's also been a lot of practitioners that have done acupuncture in the past, that did body acupuncture. Sometimes I know when people don't have a lot, they can puncture a lung. They might not be in their zone, and people have a fear of needles. Generally, people fear needles, so sometimes I have to call it a pin. Can I put a pin in your ear? But the funny thing, the thing is, when when there's no other option and they're desperate, they open. And once they've done it once and they've got over the fear that it's actually not sore, there's nothing damaging in your ear, there's nothing that you can damage in the ear. That it's safe, but there's powerful pathways. So yeah.
So I'm also very interested, like when I look at people's ears, they look so different, right? There's some people's ears shapes are totally different to each other. Like I think ears are very unique. Like if I look at feet, I know feet can be unique, but feet in general, sorry, there's the plane flying over. But feet in general, I think you can sort of figure out where the points are because I practice reflexology, so I understand how to find the points on your feet or on different feet. And I would imagine the back is also similar, but the ear I feel is like so unique for different people. So, and you showed that little image of the ear with the points on it. So it must be quite tricky to find those points on different ears when different people's ears are shaped differently, right?
So it's exactly that, but there's certain concaves, and there's a certain methodology in the ear if you learn to read it. The issue comes in when someone's played a lot of rugby, cauliflower ears. Also, when people come through the birth canal, sometimes they have concave, they're concave, so access into the sympathetic is not so easy. But that takes experience and working with the method. And I think there's I've seen, I haven't experienced an ear that I haven't been able to treat, but I have experienced, especially in the Shenmen, in the top points with rugby players or with people that have come through a birth canal, or they were lying in utero in a certain position, that their ears are really, really small, or they're really concaved in. But we can use I use a small thing that I'm still able to insert the needle. My children, my son was in hospital for a long time, and my daughter was born with 3 kidneys, and they allowed me to really see to what capacity could this work. And even to today, being in there, 7 and 9, 9 and 11, they're 9 and 11 now. But, kind of when they were 7, I started giving them Accudetox, just in 2 or 3 points at a time, just to create a flow. And seeing, the response in them as young as they are, as fragile as they are, and then working and doing Accudetox in places, in Soweto for, a gogo that's 92 years old, and in hospice with people terminally ill, very fragile, they don't even want to be touched, they don't want to be massaged, but coming in gently with the acupuncture, and then, as I mentioned to you, just bringing in, every one of us has our own expression. If I made a cup of tea and you made a cup of tea, if we used the same thing, there would still be a creative expression that you would put into that tea that I wouldn't have if we drank it. And so we find things like, sound, bringing that kind of mindfulness, bringing awareness into the body. A lot of the people I work with have some of them treatment-resistant depression, and are all over their minds. And so finding safety in their body is key, to their healing,
So it's amazing that you said, because I want to come back to your story. So you said you had a heroin addiction and you were trying to get out of that, and you were probably, I assume, went to rehab, and then they put you on medication. Like, what kind of medication is it that they give you?
So in the early years of addiction treatment in this country, there were two options. You would either go to an extremely a treatment facility that would take you off everything, and they would give you a Bible, and they would say, this is the food you need to eat. You need to eat the Word of God. And it would be a very religious. The other sect would be, you would go there and they would say, see the psychiatrist, and you would get given sleeping tablets. You would be given mood stabilizers, sometimes antipsychotics. And apart from what these things just do they null the ability to not only feel unhappy, but also to feel pleasure. And I think this is the biggest aspect of psychiatric drugs, is the dulling effect that they have on the human soul, where suddenly now, okay, I don't feel that, and we're meant to feel to heal. So when we don't feel and we become numb, very often we just stay in limbo, stay static. And in the approach in the early years of heroin addiction in this country in the early 2000s, they were using the methadone was being abused by people, and it was also like, you provide a drug and then provide a solution kind of idea. And that happened a lot in method. And then they had something called Physeptone here, and you would drink it. It was meant to help you with withdrawals, but it wasn't dealing with a root cause. It's not why the addiction, why the pain. What is that pain? What is that unneutralized energy that keeps leading you to need to self-medicate? What is it? And it took me years and a lot of learnings from a lot of beautiful souls that passed. I've witnessed many countless addicts pass from their addiction. Not only counseled them, being really close friends, to the point of even my best friend 2 years ago succumbing to this after a long stint of being clean, and understanding from the lives of myself, my own experience, but the lives of others, what leads a person to this pain, and the solutions we've been given of strong religion, that doesn't place any emphasis on what you eat, what you drink, the concept of doesn't matter what you eat or drink, God will make it all good. And no kind of responsibility. And then on the other side, it says, well, this is in your genes. So you're going to need to outsource someone. It's in your genes. There's nothing you can do about it. So you might as well come to the doctor in the white suit, and he's going to give you some medicine to make you feel good, but not happy. And they started something called Suboxone. It's still used a lot as an alternative to heroin. And it was so destructive where you would want to inject it in treatment facilities. The guys would take it and then find a needle and they would be injecting it. And that's kind of what made me look more at alternative therapies, like doing sauna therapies, well-being walks, acupuncture, yin yoga, practices that can get into the body. So in 2005, 2006, my last time that I used drugs, and I'd committed to treatment in 1998, and been in several rehabilitation centers around the country, in psychiatric facilities, and had been guinea pigged on this Suboxone. And for the first time in my life, I'm this most motivated guy. I actually contemplated like suicide on this thing, because, and I was just like, I wouldn't want to direct it to that, but there was something in it that just inhibited my life force. And so the journey of recovery involved, a long, tedious process of getting out of my environment. But working in Noquit, I ran a secondary care facility called the Drug Education Council, and I was a director. And I was in charge running medication and overseeing psychiatric medication with Dr. Westmore, with a psychiatrist. So he would alongside me, and we would use regimes to wean people down. But the pain and the withdrawals that they went through from the psychiatric medicine was quite frightening. People go, ooh, drugs, ooh, you're on drugs, but they go to Dischem and get their medicine, and I'll say, okay, use that for a couple of years, and you take it away from you. You'll see how destructive it is. And these things also affect the stomach, the gut. They're filled with binding compounds, so they're also filled with things, metals, all sorts of metals that are toxic. And we can't think that a toxic metal doesn't affect our emotions and our psyche. I think we believe we don't live according to the laws of nature. And you treat lab rats with laboratory chemicals, but humans, that's if you're a lab rat. But we're a human being, and I think when our biological needs are not met, we see disease happen more and more.
So with all the methods you tried, so you said you were first on the medication that they gave you, and then that obviously wasn't working because it was just stopping your ability to feel. And then you tried, like you said, sauna and yin yoga and probably a whole bunch of alternate modalities. So how was the Accudetox more effective? I mean, it sounds like something was different when you did the Accudetox compared to the other alternate healings. So there was something different about it. What was that for you?
It's also at a time where you are on your specific journey. I have friends that have never had Accudetox. It's not like I'm an evangelist and it must be for everyone. It's the method I use, and it's the path that came to me. I have friends that have used other modalities that are equally effective. But I think it was something that was non-verbal, and that was able to get me to release emotions. So I've used it more in the last 6 to 7 years, the last 5 years strong, where it's been my work, it's my passion, It's what I do every day. I'm in Cape Town doing work here for that. Back next week in Joburg. So it's alive, you know. People wouldn't be asking me to come back if it wasn't working. No.
So I want to talk a bit more about the meridians because it's something I'm very fascinated about. I don't know if you are able to tell us a bit more about the meridians. All I understand really is that they're energy channels and they run along the body. There's 12 of them, the 12 meridians. And like there's the lung meridian and the liver meridian. And they actually run all the way down to the soles of your feet and to the ends of your hands. And I guess obviously to the ends of your ears. But what are they and what do they do? And how does putting a needle in them do something? Like, what does it actually do? Does it like open the gates? Is it like a flood? Is it a floodgate being open and energy is flowing? Or how does this actually do what it does?
So the initial, you know, um, in yogic practices, in traditional Chinese medicine, we see there would we understand this thing called qi or prana, right? Yeah. And we see that there are things that can obstruct that. What can obstruct that flow? So if something can obstruct flow, surely it can, you know, and the method of acupuncture is all about bringing union, okay? Because right down to a cellular level, we are made up of a positive and a negative, a plus and a minus, a yin and a yang, and the need for balance and polarity exists. Even in our gut, we can't just be all alkaline. We need acid to play its role. And when we start to see that there were methods that would bring about union, again in the body, we see that there were things that people did, like Tai Chi or Qigong, was using movements that allowed this Qi, wherever that obstruction was. Could they pinpoint the obstruction to an emotion exactly, or could it have just been a density in the body in some form? And so the method of Chinese medicine is an ancient one, but with a very modern application, because we are being consuming so much and congesting ourselves. And so there's something called, I think you've heard of fascia. You've heard the term fascia. So your fascia is not your muscles. It's just below your muscles, and it is a pathway. Your fascia moves, and by doing yoga, we move our fascia. When you break your arm and you don't move your arm for a long time, there's lymphatic liquid that forms, but fascia is something that needs to be, is a pathway of movement, meridians, channels. So when we see that when we're doing exercises that produce a lot of muscle, the muscle's always protecting the fascia. It's protecting that area. But this fascia carries the capacity of is an intelligence. There is a connectivity, there's a fluidity about it. And there are we can't get into the fascia through force. We find that fascia is found when we are in a parasympathetic state. So when you are all muscled up and go to the gym and you kind of lift back, your fascia is protected by your muscles. And so Accudetox is a lovely method because we're not stimulating the body into a yang state so that the muscles are protecting. It's totally just boom, into that system. And like in the feet, there is a sensitivity, and there's an adrenal reflex point in the foot. But if I told you someone that how can you touch my foot in a specific point? And I think we've become more accustomed. Well, okay, reflexology is normal. The ear is weird. But yeah, I think it's just debunking that, but also trusting, and also if for me to have to sit here and tell you that I trust the point location, and I trust the capacity of these pathways because I see the results. When we see how connected, for instance, with the organ systems in a perspective, from a Chinese perspective, the liver supports the earth. Your earth is made up of your stomach, of your spleen, and your pancreas. So your earth element is responsible for your nourishment. If you can't nourish, salt whatever you're nourishing. But you also find that the earth cannot be held together if it wasn't for the wood and the liver support, because that holds the soil. Otherwise it would all erode. It holds the earth together. And then we start seeing the heart's role. And the heart has this amazing emotion that stems forth, that's always trying to creep into our lives, called joy. And there's these correlations. Then we go into the water element of fear, and seeing a person with an imbalance in the fear, and treating the point and seeing them, wow, okay, I had a bladder problem, or a person, for instance, wetting their bed, a youngster that came to me, and all he had was a trapped emotion, treated it through the ear, a bit of somatic experiencing, somatic awareness, into it, and he allowed himself to release that emotion. His body did it. We just witnessed that. So,
So that example is very cool. So this boy had a bladder problem, right? He's wetting his bed regularly. So where the issue is. You might not know what the issue is, but you know that it's something in the bladder urinary system. So is that how you go about treating him? Then you would say, okay, I'm going to target the bladder meridian, right? Or bladder organs, and you're going to use those points. Is that how you go about it?
no, so the method that we use is a detoxification method using 5 points always. We always use 5 points. If a patient is extremely ill, I'll use 3 points, because it'll be too much, to detox. The detoxification process takes energy. It takes energy in our bodies every night to detox. The first 4 hours of our day is about absorbing. The first part of our sleep, if we meant sleep for 8 hours, the first 4 is absorption. The next 4 is getting rid of, detoxification. But that takes energy. Hence, when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel hungry, there's a problem, because you need energy to fuel. You need to keep fueling. So, where was I going? Sorry, I lost my, yeah, so these specific points is the sympathetic. We always use the sympathetic. We use the Shen Min, which is known as the spirit gate, the navel. Okay. It brings in it brings in, I think it's something that when we face turmoil, when we face pain, there's a deconstructing of ourselves that happens, which allows us to feel a part of a spoke in a bigger wheel. And whatever that spiritual part is a big part of this process in what we do with this method. So it just opens. So the first point is your sympathetic, your Shen Min. The Shen Min is also a wonderful point for anxiety, for stress relief. You can use magnets on the point. They use it on the back of the back of the Shenman for ADHD, people battling for smoking cessation. It's a wonderful point to just regulate. And then the third point's the kidney. So the fourth point's liver, and the fifth point is lung. We are only trained to treat those points. Those are the only points we use in the NADA protocol. We are not advised to jump into anything we don't know. Those are the organ systems we use, and those are the organ systems that work together to create a continuum of flow. It was proven, tried, and tested. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. When people are trained on this, we are very strict on their point location. It's not just about, yeah, let me slap it quick, yeah. And if you get the point location right, you get the results. If you don't get the point location right, the person will feel okay because you got 2 or 3 in the right point. But if you get those first 3 points in the right point, you can create a continuum of flow. And if there's a blockage in the others, it starts to rebalance and harmonize itself. Because nature's always trying to correct to restore balance. So by influencing 3 elements, by influencing 3 points at once, we believe that we can create a continuum of flow.
Okay. So what if somebody has an issue that's not mentioned in those 5 points? So for example, blood circulation, maybe they've got some, I don't know, dirty blood, but you've only mentioned
Someone comes to me with pain. Okay, so now the liver is responsible for the moving of blood around. Okay. The stomach and the gut is responsible for inflammation. So indirectly, when we affect one organ system, you must realize that within those organ systems, within the heart is the small intestine, within the stomach is the spleen and the pancreas, within the lung is the large intestine, within the kidney is the urinary bladder, within the liver is the gallbladder, and then there's subsidiaries in that. But those 12 organs systems basically cover all of what's required for detoxification. And the body, we find that if it's just detoxed, it starts to restore balance on its own. But the detoxification needs to happen. Yeah. So people with yeah.
Yeah, so the body knows what to do. All you're doing really is helping the body get rid of the toxins because it can't really function properly, right? It's not able to do the stuff. Maybe the cells are low charge because of too much toxins that they can't get rid of or whatever. So once you hit these points, the body, I guess if I'm just trying to, understand the process. So the body goes into parasympathetic nervous system. So it's completely relaxed. So I guess that's when detox really happens at a deep level. And you keep on mentioning cellular level, right? So it's really deep. And then the detox happens, and then the body's able to do what it needs to do. So you mentioned earlier in our talk, you mentioned cancer as well. So is this something that you've seen that people can alleviate cancer pain only, or is it also able to reverse cancer in some cases?
So I think we just need to be clear that, everyone has a different understanding, that I believe that cancer is an adaptation that our body makes to toxicity. Okay, whether it be physical or abstract. So there's an obstruction that's obstructing the flow, and our body adapts, it makes adaptations to to survive, to do what it can. And when a person has cancer, most of the people that have come to me have already done a lot of treatments. And sometimes the oncology treatment can effectively deal with the tumors, but they don't deal with the elimination of the treatments. For instance, the chemotherapy, it's effective for destruction of a tumor for 24, maybe 36 hours. After that, it gets into the body and it sits and it does destructive things. So I, for instance, accompany ozone, sauna, ozone therapy alongside their people's treatments, because you need to eliminate the toxins. And if you were like me, having ignorance in my life led me to going through processes that weren't kind, but understanding that my body really can restore balance and it can eliminate. So the pain factor for people with cancer or for oncology is massive. But another part of it is the elimination of the toxins. And those toxins, like you mentioned, when a person gets into parasympathetic, you could also say they're in their heart. They're getting into their heart zone, which is a beautiful place to be. And when a person's in their heart, they are more attuned to who they are, what they, what the person, the hidden man of the heart. And it's from that place that I think it's a joy for me to treat people, just to allow that to see that happen for them, for themselves, and allowing their hearts to do that.
So how does detox happen? Like, I want to give you an example. So I also do some energy medicine, and I give patients energy medicine in a pill, and I've seen a whole variety of different ways of detox happening. Sometimes it's people have diarrhea or runny tummies, or they have flu, so they get a lot of phlegm, and they're like constantly getting phlegm out. Other ways is they might have nausea, so vomiting, so that's getting detox out. I've also had cases where people break up with skin rash, like a severe skin rash, like just because maybe there's just so much toxin that's not able to go out through the normal way. So they end up with rash or hives all over their body, and it's itchy and frustrating. And those are different detoxes that I've seen from energy medicine. So what kind of detox do you see? Because you say it happens in a session, right? It happens there. So
Well, it can happen off, if I do a couple of sessions with someone, but anyone can respond differently. For instance, the lung, the skin's connected to the metal element, which is your lungs and your large intestine. But it's also, its sensory organ is the nose and the tear duct. Hence, when there's a problem in the lung and the lungs are motioned with sorrow and grief, when you're in sorrow and grief, what do you want to do? You want to release through the tear duct. The body's got this clever way. And the earth element is linked to the mouth. So whenever you've got an imbalance in the earth, you'll always notice, burping, or if you've taken some antibiotics, notice what they did to your mouth ulcers. It was just an organ showing you an imbalance. The ears we see treating from the kidneys. The eyes from the liver. Hence why when people use cannabis, it infiltrates the liver and it's seen in the eyes. So there's a wisdom within the method that you get to know, but the detox for me ranges from every single different person depending on what they've taken, what toxins they've absorbed through their own travels, through detoxing a lot of people with vax things, the heavy metals, and I always pick it up in the lung point. But it's navigatable, but yeah, it's evident, you know. So um, with chemo, with oncology, I tend to not go too into the liver. I don't work with the liver while it's too much. It's too much on them. I work with with other 3 points, and try and support that. The liver, even liver protocols of, you know, you can use like, you know, your malic acids and walnut and Epsom salts, really basic kind of processes for liver cleansing. But a person in a very compromised position can be quite a thing. So yeah, you know, uh, the you know, someone came to me and had a miscarriage. She hadn't had a period for months, her cycle, her menstrual cycle, and I didn't actually know. She just said she had a problem. She had some hormonal problems. So it wasn't anything to do with, let me just put it in these points of detoxification. And if one part could affect another part, you know, because you can't separate one part from the whole. And she had traveled, she had spent a lot of money on different people. And here she came to me, and I was in Durban at the time, and I'm Shloti in a little, you know, doing my Acute. And she's like, "What you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm gonna put needles in your ears." She's like, "Let's just do it." And after the third treatment, her menstrual cycle returned. Yeah, so that was quite a key. You know, I got led to a lot of people, and some of them I've treated, and their menstrual cycle didn't come back. So it's not my magical hands, but I trust their body and allow their processes in their body, and I put the points, and I trust that, you know, and instill the capacity that people have their technologies that can make them feel good, that can help them release.
I love how this method, like, it really removes your subjectivity and your opinions as a practitioner. Um, I mean, obviously, you need to have the right energy and feeling, but you just have to treat these 5 points or 3 points, depending on how sick the person is. I mean, if, like you said, if you're having an off day, or I don't know, like, not up to it, but if you just hit the points correctly, the 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 technology will work. The body, the patient's body will respond. So it's amazing that you know, you can almost remove your opinions and your belief system, and even the person you mentioned, even the person, because you're not verbally speaking and trying to convince them of their beliefs and changing things. The body knows what to do, and you're really getting them back into their bodies. And I love that you mentioned that like, people go back into their heart, right? When in parasympathetic system, then they're so calm, they're in their heart, they're in tune with their body. And I'm sure the heart knows exactly what to do. I'm sure the heart is such a sophisticated organ. It's probably communicating with every single part of our body at every instant. It knows, you know, what's happening in every vein and artery, and it's got so much information about what's happening internally. So once you're there, then the body knows what to do, and it just does the work. And it's truly amazing, because you're actually really going to the subconscious mind, and you're bypassing the conscious mind. You're not The person doesn't have to believe what you say. They don't have to understand it. They don't have to trust it or anything. They just bypasses that. It's truly amazing. So do people also have to once they do the sessions, do they also have to take supplements, or I don't know, do they also have to do things to help their body with the recovery or the detox or that type of thing? Because it's detox is, like you said, it's very taxing on the body, right? It takes a lot of energy. And yeah, how do you help people through that detox?
So there's obviously nutritional advice that we give. Um, in in Craigle Park, I encourage a lot of people to do the live blood analysis and metabolic analysis to see the health markers, um, especially with oncology. I feel that's just seeing shifts when they shift aspects of their lifestyle, and just from my own experience, seeing what I shifted and how that had changed what it did for me, and the excitement that I got in my own body again. Because when you are given a diagnosis of being ill, there's a big feeling of my body's let me down. There's something wrong, and that belief system can really manifest. But when you start feeling something right, what's right about me today, just in this moment, not tomorrow, then, or but just here now, and it's beautiful. So everyone's different. I work with a team, like I said, I'm in Cape Town. People to support. I'm not a guru of everything. Um, I'm not a doctor. Um, just do what I do. But I do. I, I encourage people to balance their gut. Look at ways to eliminate heavy metals. Um, if they want to go the live blood analysis route, support them, work with them with that. Also teach them ways that, go into a person's home, specifically with cancer that they just can't get rid of, and help them, teach them how to heal themselves from cooking, cleaning. I go into the bathroom and many people say I'm very organic, like, I'm like quite an organic kind of person, and they'll walk into the bathroom with this toilet freshener that says like ocean breeze. Like on the back of it, it's like hazardous, in the small confined bathroom, and I'll be spraying the stuff, but it's ocean breeze. Just people not conscious to how they are not living according to the laws of nature. And a little thing like eliminating toxic soap is a big thing when you have lymphoma. Um, Deodorants that, they say on the back there, this is like, it's hazardous. It smells good. It's going to make you smell great, but it's not going to give you. So actually, the detoxification is like a lifestyle approach. So I'm doing a workshop in Johannesburg next week. I do donate workshops, not free workshops for people, just specifically in oncology as well. I'm hoping we can roll out more of these next year.
So I'm going to leave all the details to that, to Jono's website, to his Instagram, to all his socials, and you guys can all check out the workshops that he's offering. Like Jono said, he just wants to share the information. Some workshops are going to be free, so do check them out. So Jono, just on the closing, because you mentioned this metal quite a lot, and I've got a quantum resonance machine, so I scan people, and one of the chapters that we see is heavy metals, right? And I've noticed so many people are heavy with lead. Even myself, I had high lead um, amounts in my body, and also mercury, and like these weird metals that I don't know how we assimilate them. But I would imagine other people who are consuming a lot of pharmaceutical meds and deodorants and all these things, because I don't have, I haven't used any mainstream deodorant for a long time. I use like these organic deodorants, and I don't have, I try to limit any pharmaceutical stuff. I don't eat processed food too much. So I'm also curious, where do I get heavy metals from? Is it just in the air, or is it like in the water, or?
Yeah, so you can pick up a lot of the heavy metals in the antibiotics that they put in the municipal water. Um, you can pick up through vaccinations from even when you're a kid, a child, heavy and heavy. Um, we get them through a radiation chemo, um, through whenever you have an operation. Most of the drugs are filled with these things. So, um, and then there's also some of our spices and stuff, some of the things we use sometimes aren't all 100%. And there's residue sometimes in the machines that they made as well, funny enough. Like it's made in a, um, so the elimination of heavy metals has been a big thing because I don't think 5,000 years ago they were dealing with it. Like even now, 5G, if you go into the Yellow Emperor's Manual, the Jing, um, you won't even find, radioactivity. Like there was no treatment. There wasn't that toxicity then. So, um, I love products like NAC. Um, I like, the Diametis Earth. A couple of really good products around. You've got some products. I know you deal with this a lot as well. Um, but I can't. It's still early. I haven't seen someone in a long time afterwards how it is. But when there is a heavy metal problem, there's always problems very often in the failure, the problem when assimilating vitamins again, the assimilation, and then also in the congestion, asthma, nose, continual problems with uh, the sinuses and that as well. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So just to close off, I wanted to understand what kind of people you have sort of mentioned, what kind of people you can treat through your approach. But are you able to treat acute illness? So like someone, I don't know, let's say they have bronchitis, for instance. Um, are you able to treat that using this method as well?
So it 100% can open up pathways, help organ. I I encourage people if they are sick and they need to go to a doctor. There's been people where they don't go to doctors. They come to me and I'm like, hold on, you need to go and have a look at an underlying, what is it? But I'm not a big fan uh, of of anything that's outside of us. So, I think it's a good place to start before the bronchitis started. Catch something in infancy, deal with it while it's still a small root, a small shoot, before it becomes a big tree. Um, so, but for instance, if someone is battling with lungs, with a problem, the Accudetox will help massively. And I've seen this because of being treating people that are on chemo, like how they are in not a good space and they're looking for something to work. So yeah, it does work in acute cases. If someone has a low um, red blood, if they have blood problems, um, bone marrow, I'm more careful to treat them with the needles because of their propensity to bleed. Um, so being conscious of that as well. I'm currently treating someone uh, with acupressure and reflexology and just magnets on the points in the ear rather than using the needle because of, of his state. You know.
So the magnets, you mentioned that also a bit earlier. So how does the magnets differ from the needles? I guess from what you said that they're a little bit gentler. So maybe the needles do a lot of detox, but the magnets maybe do like less detox, they're a bit lighter. Is that the case?
I would say that the pulse isn't as strong as, the needles the needles I use um, are really small, 20, small little, I don't know if you could see that, very, very small. But they have a copper, they have a copper, I feel the copper in it is like a conduit. Um, I don't use stainless steel needles, um, but um, uh, the point that they're so small. The magnets work on a similar. They're all called ear seeds. Work on a similar point. But obviously, having those things all the time is irritating. If you bath or shower, they might fall off. The one that we use on the Shenman is with very discreet, and it goes behind the ear. But I've seen people with trying to come off concerta, youngsters, children, uh, really, when their parents get to a point where they're like, I can't give my child any more Ritalin, like I'm done. But then you see how harsh it is for that child to go cold turkey. Like, it's not just you're not having it, their body, there's everything. There's an imbalance, there's a chemical imbalance as a result of this stuff. So the ear seeds are great for kids on the back of the ear, the Shenman. I can't say they're not as effective. They're effective. Some people come in for their ear seeds and they just sit for them during the time instead of needles, and then at the end you take off the ear seeds.
Amazing, amazing technology. So, guys, please do check out UMOYA, You Heal You. And I think this is amazing that Jono has gone and studied this very niche kind of acupuncture and brought it here to South Africa, and he's sharing this knowledge on how you can heal yourself by stimulating your subtle energy system. That's really what's happening, isn't it? Your meridians, your subtle energy body that is now doing the work, and it manifests in your physical body, detoxing and then feeling better.